Rudy B. Mora is my guest today. He is running for Bernalillo County Sheriff. He's worked in the Sheriff's Department as an under sheriff. In 2015, he was sworn in, and he worked almost 5 years, and then he went on to Laguna Pueblo as he worked as Chief of Police. And now he's retired, but he wants to come back as the top position. And I'm going to read you, I think one of his mottos is, "We don't have to be bad to get better." Rudy Mora, thank you for being a part of the program, and thank you for throwing your hat in to the sheriff's race.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm excited about it. I've been a public servant my entire life. One of the main reasons why I'm running is that I'm vested in this community. My wife and I have a small business. We understand the challenges that crime present to small businesses, to families, to just about everyone, and I want to be able to put my skills and abilities to use. I have great relationships with all the criminal justice system. I live my life. You mentioned you don't have to be bad to get better. I live my life that way. I don't look backwards a whole lot. I learn from my mistakes. I fail just about every day. And I learned from those. It's kind of like a car, right? It's the reason why the windshield is so big and the rearview mirror is so small. You just glance up every now and then and see what's going on in the past and learn from it and move on. What drove me to law enforcement early on is I was a victim of violent crime. Yeah. In July of 1989, I was a young high school student getting ready to enter my senior year of high school at West Mesa.
West Mesa?
Yes, and I was out with some friends, and someone who didn't even know me, I didn't know them, they stopped a vehicle in front of me, and I was driving a motorcycle, and the passenger got out and fired a .45 caliber handgun in our direction, and it hit me in the chest. Came at an angle, went through my chest, collapsed my lung, and went out my armpit. So, just knowing, being a victim of that situation and feeling like I was underrepresented when this individual had no regard for my life or anyone else's life for that matter, and he got 6 months in the city county jail with work release, and I almost lost my life. It was a driving force for me to join law enforcement. My father, my mom's father, my grandfather, I never met. He was a crossing guard for Bernalillo County Sheriff's Office, and in 1968 he was killed at a crosswalk by a subject who was having a medical episode, and he pushed some children out of the way, and he got hit and killed by the car. Was another reason why, just family history. On my dad's side, Filomeno Mora, he's my great-great-grandfather, was a probate judge for Bernalillo County in 1910. We have a long history of serving in our family. And that's the main reason why I want to run, is just to continue to serve the people and do anything I can to keep people safe. As a small business owner, like I mentioned, I know that in all our 20-some years of business, I never had to think that keeping our employees safe who do property maintenance is so critical. And it's sad, that I have to worry about them getting carjacked, stuff stolen from them, or even just victimized in any way.
What kind of business do you have, Rudy?
We have a property maintenance company where we do parking lot sweeping, grounds maintenance, janitorial, and having people out at all hours of the night is worrisome. For a business owner, we've had our parking lot sweepers attempted carjacking in the middle of the night. We just have people confront people for illegal dumping this week, and they try to run them over, and it's important that I continue to educate our employees that it's not worth it. Just do your job, and if people are being violent or whatever, just go the other way and try to be a good witness, and nothing's worth losing your life over, So
you've been very close to that, Rudy. So in 26 years, again, you started with state police, and then worked for the sheriffs, and then the city of Laguna, or the Pueblo of Laguna. What have you seen happening in our community over the past 26 years? And I read online that you stated the rising level of violent crime and drug abuse in recent years is a warning sign that we must do more to make our community safer. Now, we've been seeing this for decades.
Yes.
What have you seen right on the front line?
It's the same thing, right? You know, we have seen the criminal being emboldened by not being held accountable. I'm a firm believer in personal accountability, and I also believe in helping people that need a helping hand, and most importantly, who want a helping hand. But when people continue to be violent repeat offenders, they need to be held accountable, and that's something that I'm willing to do. I'm willing to work with community stakeholders, the state legislature, anyone in the criminal justice system to make sure that these violent repeat offenders are being held accountable, because statistics show that these same individuals are committing the same violent crimes. You know, it's a small percentage of these criminals that are committing all the violent crime. It's because they continually get released back out into the system.
And those of us who aren't in law enforcement, we read it in the paper, we hear it on TV, we see it on Issues and Answers. So we hear about it, but you were on the front line seeing this, and you personally experienced it in your own life when you were shot.
Yes.
So what could you as sheriff, though, do about this?
Well, you know, as an elected sheriff, you know, well, let me just go back a little bit. As a chief of police, I still had to answer to a tribal council, and so I wouldn't like to say your hands are tied, but what ends up happening is that, you know, as an elected official, you answer to the people, and the people are fed up with what's going on here, and everyone's quick to blame the judges, but the judges only enforce the law and hold people accountable according to the law. Where we need to make change is at the state legislature. We need to make sure that the crimes that are being committed have adequate consequences for that. And what we had and we were all part of it, we voted for that bail reform, you know, and that's the problem. We need to go back and petition our state legislators to take a look at that and say, hey, this law has passed several years ago. Is it working? And I'm here to tell you it's not working, because violent repeat offenders continue to be violent repeat offenders.
But didn't the UNM Law School come out with some studies saying that, no, it's actually, that's not the problem?
Yeah, well.
And that's why I think, if I recall, the legislature didn't pass reforming it again. Yeah. Improving upon it. Well, so that's my recollection, but what's yours?
Yeah, absolutely, that's what they said. But again, I'm boots on the ground. You know, I've been a victim of violent crime. I've seen people that you know, have continued to be victims of violent crime, property crimes, and something has to change, and we all have to work together. You know, I was fortunate enough as an undersheriff to go to Maricopa County and see a lot of their restorative justice and rehabilitation programs. Their
well, their sheriff had a couple decades ago the tent cities and such, right?
Yeah, right.
I mean, he received a lot of attention, was successful, it seemed, but then that turned out the opposite way.
Yeah.
I mean, I think they threw him out.
Yeah, they did. And you know, it's one of those things that I'm not saying about that. What they have is they have a full circle program when it comes to people that are in crisis that need either substance abuse treatment, mental health treatment, skills training, job training, transitional housing, incentives for employers to continue to pay employees that are dealing or struggling with mental health or substance abuse. There's programs that complete the entire circle. Where in New Mexico, we fail. Plain and simple. You know, when someone who's suffering from substance abuse, and I'll give you an example. I used to go as an undersheriff and work the graveyard hours and make arrests. And I arrested a particular individual, and he told me the reason why he was getting arrested so he can go get treatment at the jail. And for me, as a parent, a grandparent, a husband, a business owner, a law enforcement officer, that troubled me. When people are getting arrested because our best service provider for mental health and substance abuse is the jail, there's something wrong with that. And then hearing that individual talk and say, hey, I get 30 hours of treatment from a service provider, and when the 30 hours is up, They cut him loose, and what ends up happening, he goes out, maybe he tries to stay sober, or he or she may stay sober as long as they can, but it's an addiction, it's a disease, and they're going to land up creating property crime, doing whatever they have to do to get back in that system. And I think that's one thing in Bernalillo County that needs to change, and New Mexico for that matter, is that service providers need to be provided funding based off of success rates, not just a client number. You know, so, and I think that's one area where I'm committed to working with whoever to make sure that our community is safe. And if that means stepping outside of public safety and engaging behavioral health, mental health, the county commission, the state legislature, the city council, I'll do whatever it takes, because those are the things that if we work together, we can make some change.
But as I understand, people need to want the help. And again, as a layperson, not law enforcement, I'm under the belief that it's so easy for these repeat offenders to go break into someone's house and steal someone else's property instead of earning money to buy their own property, that it seems that these career criminals may not want any assistance or programs to help them, or education, because it's been so easy to take someone else's belongings than work and learn and study and earn a job and pay for their own.
Yeah,
it just seems like it's a habitual thing in our community.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. You know, and that's where another key piece to that is investing in our youth. You know, we live in a society here, and we're seeing grandparents raising grandkids, and we have to be better parents. We have to invest in our children. You know, one thing that I'm passionate about is putting school resource officers in the elementary schools. Currently, the sheriff's office has them in mid schools and high schools, and I would like to expand that program and put them into the elementary schools, because statistics show that when children in that elementary age frame are mentored by police officers, they have a much less chance of creating or committing crime as they grow older. And
there are studies for that, Rudy?
Yes, there are studies, and Oakland did a very comprehensive study where they followed a group of children from that elementary all the way through high school, and that particular group, you know, went on a very high percentage rate, finished high school, went on to college, and were less likely, in the high 90% less likely, to be involved negatively with law enforcement.
Because they learn to respect them
at
an early age,
and it's mutual.
Someone
exactly
turned them off to the law enforcement.
Yes, you know, and it's just one of those things where I believe law enforcement, again, we don't have to be bad to get better, but we need to continually understand that we serve the people. And when you have police officers that feel valued, they feel appreciated, they're going to go out there and do a better job. And that's one thing that I'm committed to. As a small business owner, I understand the value of a dollar. And not saying that my opponents don't, but I can tell you most politicians, most government employees could spend money like just by turning on the faucet. Where I look at it a little different. You know, I make decisions, financial decisions. All my decisions are like throwing a rock into a clear pond, and I want to see where every single ripple wave hits that shoreline and how it's affected. And that's what I do with my business, because we have employees that are making sure that my wife and I make good financial decisions, because their livelihood depends on it. And that's what also I bring to the table as a sheriff's candidate. And
I think you had direct oversight of the $47 million budget.
Yes,
of the Sheriff's Department as an undersheriff of what, operations and administration and internal affairs.
Yes, and you know, I think right now it's up in the $55 million budget range. You know, when the state passed the mandatory body camera law, you know, the county commission was obviously had to fund that, so that was a big portion of that.
What is your feeling on the body cameras?
I 100% support it. I worked my entire career with the New Mexico State Police behind a dash camera, and I've seen it where it not only protected me from false, frivolous allegations, but it also, I've seen it a number of times protect the people that I worked for. And there was one particular case where a female had made false allegation about one of my officers that I'm responsible for, and I was proud to bring them in and say, where did this happen? And where she said it happened, I said, well, let's play the video, and just to see the look on her face that, that was able to exonerate that officer. That's what it's all about, and then there's times where we catch officers doing inappropriate things, and of course they need to be held accountable as well.
We discussed the level of violent crime and drug abuse and your solution regarding focusing on drug abuse and treatment and things like that. Also, another area that you're concerned about is intelligence-driven policy strategy, I read online. What does that mean? Well,
we have the ability to do intelligence-based policing, and the data is there, and what this helps law enforcement do is to be able to predict where crimes are being committed and where they're about to be committed.
Repeat that for me, Rudy, Mora.
Yes, sure. So we have the ability to know where crimes have occurred, just based off historical data, the people that are committing those crimes, and then we can have algorithms kind of show us where likelihood that crimes are going to be committed based off the previous historical data. And as a sheriff, as law enforcement, we can deploy resources to those areas. And I'll give you an example.
And we're doing that currently?
Yes, but not to its full potential. And here's what I would like to expand on. We have someone, like I mentioned earlier, suffering from substance abuse. And we know that the courts will mandate 30 hours of treatment for him. We have that information. Why can't, on the 29th hour of their treatment, reach out to them with some social workers and say, hey, you're about your court-mandated treatment's going to stop. You're going to be released out here. Here's some additional resources, maybe with faith-based communities that can offer additional resources for them. That way they're not going to self-medicate. Here's another example.
But we're not currently doing that.
Well, I've been away from the sheriff's office, so I don't know what they're doing, but I know the capability is there, and I want to expand on it because I was part of bringing the new records management system into the sheriff's office and the new computer-aided dispatch, and those are things that are easily accessible. That's something I'm very proud of, what we did at the Pueblo of Laguna as well. We were able to institutionalize the new records management system that captures that data, that's tied in with the court system, tied in with probation and parole, tied in with social services, so everybody has access to the same data. I've said this my whole career, is that we in law enforcement fight organized crime with unorganized law enforcement. And I truly believe that. And we saw this in September 11th, 2001, where the federal government agencies couldn't even talk to one another when they had information that this was likely going to happen. And we need to be better at that. We need to be able to share and work with our partners, state, local, federal partners, and be willing to share that information to keep people safe. And the technology is there. We just need to be continually getting better at that.
Rudy, what would you like to share with the public that I haven't touched upon about not only why you want to be, but what your experience brings and what kind of change and improvements you would bring to the Sheriff's Department?
I would really like to let people know that I believe in a learning organization. I'm a student of learning organization. As a young father, I had to go out and work 2 and 3 jobs to provide for my family. And I've always stressed through my wife and I to our children that education is important. Well, just recently, it's right at the time I was the under sheriff, I said, well, I better put my money where my mouth is, and I'm finishing my degree in organizational leadership, and I actually finish next month. And I'll have a bachelor's degree in organizational leadership, which I truly believe in. I've been to Northwestern Police Staff and Command School. I've been to the Southern Police Institute on executive leadership. For those of you that don't know, the State of New Mexico Department of Public Safety has 5 levels of certificate, one being an intermediate certificate for an officer to achieve, advanced certificate, showing that they've received X amount of advanced training and they get that certificate, and then they have first line supervisor, so when you become a sergeant, you can after a year of sergeant, you can apply for that certificate. Then they have command certificate, and the highest level they have within the Department of Public Safety is executive certificate. I hold that certificate because I've been a chief of police, I've been an undersheriff. And a lot of my opponents, they may or may not have that, but I think that brings value for me to the sheriff's office. I'm a very empathetic leader where I believe that people will be the greatest asset in any organization. And when people feel empowered, they feel supported, they'll do amazing things. And that's one thing that I believe I will bring to the sheriff's office, is be able to empower the people, both civilian and sworn personnel, to be the best they can be, because I believe if they're the best trained, have the best resources, then they provide the best services to the people, and that's what I believe in.
How much more training would they need? And they have substantial training now, and of course in recent years the whole movement regarding use of force, deadly use of force, has been an issue, of course, of the public concern. So you want to empower them on one hand, but then again there's a lot of restrictions that needs to come with perhaps abuse of power.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and those are things that are, some trainings mandated by the New Mexico Department of Law Enforcement Academy, and we have to do that mandated training. I believe that we need to continually be better and be able to adapt and improvise to what's happening both locally and nationally when it comes to law enforcement. But at the same time, I don't want a law enforcement to ever second guess themselves because of public perception of what's going on there. You know, it's easy for you and I to sit here and look at a video and say, oh, I would have done that. I've been there, and those split-second decisions, it's tough to make.
Yeah.
And I think if officers are continually trained by reality-based training, they're giving the tools of de-escalation, understanding when somebody's suffering from mental health, substance abuse. One thing that's big that we're seeing here and that's not really being addressed is called meth psychosis, and it's methamphetamine-induced psychosis that can't be reversed. And I see this. You know, I worked my entire career working Interstate 40, looking for drug smugglers, people that were smuggling contraband on Interstate 40, Interstate 25, and I see what drugs cause in society, and they're truly the root of all evil. And I think in order to solve crime, we have to continually go after drug offenses.
What do you think about the border, our southern border, closing the border?
I can tell you that New Mexico and our vast highway system and our proximity to Mexico, they make us a prime target. And I believe in a secure border, because I also believe in immigration reform, you know, because we need to be able to give people a path to citizenship, but we can't have just open borders where people and criminals are taking advantage of that and hurting our children, hurting our youth. We're now seeing fentanyl being huge in our community, and it's so scary to see because it's so easy to get and it's so inexpensive to get.
Oh, Rudy, so what's the root of all evil? These drugs, you see them coming on I-25, I-40. As a state police officer, you're working on this.
Yep.
Solution, please.
You know, you have to put your foot down when it comes to these crimes. You have to hold people accountable. You have to climb that chain, do complex investigations, work with the federal government, and get these cases, organized crime cases, because I've arrested thousands of drug smugglers, and those folks, I hate to say it, they're just folks that are on the fringe of society. They're a single mom with 3 kids that can't provide, and they come and they're approached with somebody that says, hey, I'll give you $1,500 to drive a car from Phoenix to Denver. And who am I to say whether they should do that or not? You know, they don't even know what they're carrying. You know, so I've arrested a lot of people that are good people that just made bad choices. What we do in law enforcement can do is get them the help that they need, climb the ladder, get the drug trafficking organization, and continue to dismantle those drug trafficking organizations, which these cartels create just no different than the Al-Qaeda cells that we've seen over the years, where one cell doesn't know what the other cell is doing. And the drug cartels follow that same thing. So if we could infiltrate all these different cells, whether it's a cell that's moving the dope into our communities, or it's a cell that's bringing the money back, bulk currency, we need to attack it from all angles and hold people accountable.
Rudy, Mora, you sound very passionate on this.
Yes.
On this issue,
yes.
On improving our safety and the lives of our children who are growing up, and we want them to stay in Albuquerque and Bernalillo County. We want them to remain here and be safe as they're doing it.
Yes. It's something I'm passionate about. I have grandkids that I take on walks, and you know, I just want them to feel safe. You know, I have grown daughters that I'm giving advice to. Don't fill up your car in the middle of the night. You know, make sure you have gas in the morning. And it's something that we really shouldn't have to do. You know, I want to educate the people how to not be victims. Because let's face it, crime's here, and it's probably going to be here to stay for a while. But if we as a community can identify criminals and defend ourselves from that by not making us easy targets,
that'll be good.
That'll help out.
And you throwing your hat into the ring to be sheriff is something that can help as well.
Yes.
I take my hat off to all the candidates. We have a number of them running who have a passion and want to improve our safety. So I thank you, as I thank the other candidates, for doing this. My guest today, Rudy Mora, is running for Bernalillo County Sheriff. The election, the primary, is this June, and of course the general election in November. Remember to vote. Thanks for watching this program. I'm Diane Kinderwater. Make it a great week with your family. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.